Today on Behind the Cardboard, we're opening the tool that helps you turn this into this. In this video, I unbox the 10-free 6-frame manual honey extractor. I'll go step by step through the assembly process and operation. Then I'll share my first impressions on performance and best use cases. Is this honey spinner right for you? Stick around. You're about to find out. It's unboxing and assembly time. Let's get started. And there she blows. The parts within the box, excluding the drum, which I'll show you here in just a second. So let's start with the all-important legs. We got 3 legs, and then the drum support that attached to the legs go run up the side of the drum. We have the honey gate and the crank, and this is the cover that goes over the drum. Of course, the all-important installation and user manual, and then our nuts and bolts for assembly. And the pied de resistance, the actual drum itself, which is mostly assembled. It doesn't look like there's going to be a whole bunch of assembly other than just putting on the legs and the braces alongside of the drum. But take a look at this. This is how well balanced this is. And I've barely given that a push. This is very well balanced. So, time for assembly. We've got the gearbox assembly. I'll pull out first. It should be attached to the basket, but it is not, so it comes loose free. And then let's turn our attention to the basket. Now it pulls out freely. Just be careful so you don't scar up the inside. There is this pin, and it goes, and down in the bottom of that hole there is a metal ball, and it is loose, so if you were to turn this upside down it would fall out. So know that you have a loose ball bearing down in the bottom of that hole. So it's time now. Let's move this back to the table so we can install the honey gate. The easiest of your assembly steps will most likely be the honey gate. Simply stick that in. Then you come inside, put on the flat washer. May provide a little bit of a challenge with one hand while you're holding the outside honey gate in place. Take your time, you'll get it. Then you follow up with your plastic nut. Make sure everything is aligned correctly. I back thread mine until I feel that thread lock, and then I proceed tightening it. As far as tight goes, hand tight should be sufficient for this. There you have it. Honey gate assembled. Our next step is to assemble the drum stand to the legs, and you have an option of how tall or how high off of the ground. Just two choices, but still an option for how high you want that off of the ground. Watch your washer. So I'm going to keep mine as high off the ground as possible, and so I'm going to remove this. This is a 14 millimeter. Move it from the drum stand and slide it inside of that channel, and then reinstall that bolt. Pretty easy. Now you're going to notice that these are pill shaped, so you're going to pull them all the way forward and then tighten. Make sure you can go one way or one direction or the other, or you're going to get a wobble in your legs. But that's also going to give you the opportunity to adjust your legs if you are not on exactly a flat surface. So you'll have some options there as well. So that's pretty cool. It's time now to attach the leg assembly to the drum. This up with your wrenches to tighten these down, and you're finished with this step. So it is time to put the cage back in the tub, but before we do that, let me switch over here for a little quick project. We're going to put the gearbox onto the cage before we put it back in the tub. I think it might be easier to do it with it outside of the tub. So I've got an 8mm socket that fits that bolt. All right. So we'll be putting the entire assembly in. So let's get this cage in, and again, we're gonna slip her right down real carefully, and we'll put this end right here, right on top of that ball bearing at the very base of, all right, that looks good. And lift that up, just sit her right there in the middle, and there you go. Put these nuts on. I wouldn't be too worried about over tightening everything at this point. And then the handle. And this will go on via that. I wouldn't go Hulk on this thing. Just put a good tight twist on it. And that should work. To test is start out slowly, and what you're listening, you want to listen for anything that might be rubbing. So you start out slow, and then you can pick up speed a little bit, because you definitely don't want this hitting the sides of your drum. Once you've tested it in one direction, you want to turn right around and test it in the other direction. And slow it down. And then there is one more item that you'll want to add to your tub, and that is the lid. These are not hinged lids. They just plop down there in place and are held in place by these two little items right there. It doesn't allow them to come back towards me. They just lift directly up and out. This is a coating, and I'll pull that off here in a little bit. But as you can see, these are clear, so you'll be able to see straight into your drum while you're spinning. We'll do that later, not important. And that's it, except for, let's put in some frames to show you how this thing works. We'll do a quick demo on how to load this spinner. First and foremost, note that it has two spots for large frames, two and only two. So you can actually, if you have a combination of large and medium boxes, honey boxes, you can fill this thing up. However, if you are just running large frames, you're only going to be able to do 2 frames at a time. And I'll go back through this in just a second regarding even more limitations to the spinner. However, if you are running both large and medium boxes, honey supers, then you can do 4 of the mediums each spin. There is no particular way how these fit in here. They can go either direction, but this would be a fully loaded spinner. So we have the 2 mediums and the 2 large. Now here's the trick with this, and it's not really a trick, but when spinning, each spin is probably going to take somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes. And again, that's going to be depending on how cold your honey is. If you're doing this in the middle of the summer, you're probably going to get the extraction to work a little bit faster than in the fall if you've run into some colder weather where the honey is starting to get a little bit more firm. Then you may find yourself spinning this upwards of 20 minutes, even more. Let's say I've just accomplished my 10 minutes of spinning. And you don't really have to go in one direction. It doesn't really matter. Whichever you favor, whether you're a left hand, right hand, it doesn't matter. Centrifugal force works either clockwise or counterclockwise. Here is my biggest complaint with the manual spinner and this setup specifically. Now that I've done the first spin, there's a second spin. I have to pull all of these frames and then turn them around because the inside of the frame has not had the centrifugal force pulling the honey out. It's actually it's been embedding the honey back into the frame. So now you have to do the whole thing all over again for another 10, 15 minutes again, however long. And in order to get each of these frames completely extracted. And again, not sure why this isn't setting back down there. It shouldn't be. There we go. If you don't get them set down there, if you got one setting up a little high, it's going to hit the gearbox bar here. The process for manually spinning your frames can be, and typically is going to be longer than if you have obviously a mechanical spinner, which actually mechanical spinners, the frames sit this direction and everything spins outward into the drum. That's a standard design. Even if you were ingenious enough to put a motor on here to save yourself the crank, you're still going to have to flip your frames. So that's my biggest complaint. However, for the small apiary, this is where you need to start. This is my suggestion because the amount of money, the difference between the cost of a manual versus a motorized, it's not what you want to do is sinking a bunch of money into a motorized spinner your first or maybe your second year. If you're doing this for your own personal consumption, you're not generating any income and you're just digging yourself a financial hole. Plus, if you have kids, make it a game. It's kind of cool. It's actually not kind of cool. It's really cool. And I think the kids will absolutely enjoy coming out and being a part of the harvest. Now, what I didn't show you, I went ahead and took the film off of these lids so you can see that they are clear. So you can actually see what's going on inside the drum while you're spinning. So that is my overall opinion on this. I think this is great. It's well balanced. The bearings seem to be really good on this. It's easy to spin. The frames fit in well in the cage. So I think, again, for a small apiary, just getting started, this is what you want to start with. This one seems to have everything you'll need to get started. It assembled easily without any real special tools. That's my thoughts, that's my opinion. What fits your apiary best is completely up to you. This, however, is a good spinner to start with. For the hobbyist or small apiary, this is the smart start. Well built, easy to assemble, and it won't break the bank. The catch? You're pulling and flipping frames after each spin. That's the trade-off. On my next video, I'm doing a full feature breakdown on this extractor. Stainless steel drum, clear lids, gearbox, and the legs. So hit your subscribe button so you won't miss it. Until next time, this is Les with Behind the Cardboard.